Agile consultant based in Netherlands. And at CareersTalk, we invite industry experts from around the world to share their real life experience with our community. Today, we are going to discuss Scrum Master interview questions shared by one of our community member who recently attended an interview at Deloitte. And to help us with the discussion, we are glad to have Garima Agarwal with us. She has over
Thank
19 years of experience and has led several agile and project management initiatives. But before we start, please subscribe to our channel. If you appreciate our quality content, please hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comment section. Also, don't forget to check out the exclusive interview questions available to our silver members and exclusive interview recordings available to our gold members. If you're not yet a YouTube member, you can join at very nominal fee. And in addition to that, we can get you will also become a part of our discussion group and WhatsApp job community. All right, let's get started in a promotion. Let's move on. So, hello, Garima. Thank you for joining us today. Over to you, Garima.
Hello, Sonan. Thanks for sharing this opportunity. I'm very glad that you have called me on this, and I'm very excited to share my experience here. So yeah, over to you now.
Thank you. Okay, so let's start with our questions. So, the very
Mhm.
first question is one of your developer consistently finish all the sprint backlog items by mid
Mhm.
sprint, but they really achieve the sprint goal. So the POA is, frustrated as a scrum master. What underlying problem might this reveal and how you are going to address it? So that's the question.
Okay. So what I can understand that here the team is able to complete the so-called stories and all by the end of the sprint, or might be the earlier, but the kind of the sprint goal is not achievable as per the
True.
PO. Right? So I found this is a kind of the gap of the sprint planning and the sprint goal. So this is something that we have to check here ki what is actually the sprint goal. Might be we are doing the team is doing just the task oriented stories that okay, we have to do this, we have to do that, but it's not as much the value addition into the sprints for the sprint or for the business or the client. So we, as a scrum master, the person must have to fill this gap particularly. That okay, that where is the gap? Because if the stories are completed, but kind of the sprint goal or the business value is not achievable, then there is a gap in the planning and the defining the sprint goal. Might be in the gap into the definition of done as well. So we have to fix that. First, we have to communicate with each other to understand the expectations and to let the developers also know, okay, what is the expectation? If we're talking about the sprint goal, what is the sprint goal? It's not the task oriented, it's the goal oriented. Have to deliver some added value to the customer. So these are the things that we as a scrum master have to take care. So yeah, this is from my side.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So I just want to add a quick one or two points over here, Garima. So in
Mm-hmm.
several organizations I have coached, most recently in a large financial service platform. So the sprint goal was something generic, like complete plan stories. So developers optimize for closing tickets and they're not for delivering a usable increment. So when your sprint goal is vague or optional, then this could happen. That is one of the
Yes.
reason that it could happen. Or probably when your backlog items are not sliced correctly. So maybe, item may be technically complete, but not vertically sliced to produce a customer value. So for example, let's say team finish some API changes and UI components separately, but the end-to-end flow required for the sprint goal remain incomplete. So that may be one of the reasons that it might happen. And
Yeah.
sometimes what happens that your product owner prioritize scope over outcomes. So I've seen product owner push safe independent stories into the sprint to protect the velocity instead of aligning teams around a single business objective. So that's again one of the reasons that it may happen. And the other reason, as you also mentioned, definition of done does not ensure goal fulfillment. So team may meet DoD at story level, but they still fail to deliver a coherent increment that support the sprint goal. So that might be the one of the couple of reasons that it may happen. Now, how we can address it? Maybe maybe like I would make the sprint goal non-negotiable. So as you
Mhm.
also mentioned in a sprint planning, I would coach the PO and the developers to define a clear outcome oriented sprint goal. So for example, let's say enable customers to complete a digital onboarding without manual intervention. So it's a complete sprint goal. And that I would also ensure that every sprint backlog item explicitly support that particular goal. And maybe we can also think about how we can work on our sprint planning facilitation skills, right? So in place of starting with the story selection, maybe we could have asked, okay, what problems are we trying to solve by the end of this sprint? Or let's say which work is important and which is optional if the time allows. So these kind of questions, if we could have asked in a sprint planning, so that will, then they can
Crazy.
start, yeah, then they can think about, okay, we are committing to goal and not the list of the user stories, right? So that kind of approach, I think that going to help us. And of course we should introduce a goal based sprint. We should introduce goal based tracking during the sprint. So in our daily scrum we should move the conversation from that, okay, what did you do yesterday, to maybe are we still on track to meet the sprint goal, or what work is at risk, and how soon we can achieve our sprint goal and all. So this kind of change in a questions, right? It can expose the dependencies and the late integration issues early on. So all these things, I think these are the small things which we could have add value if we can, think about the sprint goal. Okay. So that's something which I just want to add. Okay, Garima, anything
Excellent.
else you want to add, or we can move on to our next question?
I think we can move to next question.
Okay, great. So the next question is, a Scrum team has been working together for, let's say, 18 months, and the
Mhm.
PO complained that the sprint reviews has become boring formalities where stakeholders just come and they nod and they leave. So what might you do to restore the value of sprint review as a Scrum Master?
Okay. So in that case, first we have to identify that what can be the root cause. So there could be the multiple root cause or might be a single. So first we have to think about that how we are presenting our reviews or demos. That is very important for. Is it we are doing again with the task orientation patterns, or we are sharing our work as per the valuated things, that okay, we have achieved this, the kind of the achievement things to share with the stakeholders. Yes, is during this sprint this has been achieved or this has been done or not. And the second question gap might be the, are we presenting our reviews to the correct stakeholders? So sometimes when we have the for your kind of the requirements, or we can say the information from the different stakeholders, but they are not present into the reviews meeting because of any chances, and there are different people there who are not have very much knowledge about those features and all, or they are not the right person. So definitely they will see, nod and go. They cannot value add, they cannot give their expert comments ki, okay, this was the expected, you have done good, or this was the expected and there is the gap, because they are not the expert of this thing. And there might be the third reason that I can think of, that what they were expected. The stakeholder might be expected something different, and we are sharing, although from our side is quite engaging, we are sharing the sprint goals in a very crisp and clear manner, the business value, but still it is not as per the expectations of the stakeholders. So these are can be the gaps. So first, and how more important is to first to identify that where is the gap, and then again then fix it. If you are feeling that okay, for this particular sprint requirement has been given by those business people and we miss them to invite, or whatever is the reason is, then make sure that at least their representative or those persons should join into the sprint review. So I have seen in a couple of my projects when I led, so what happened that particular requirements has been shared by some particular business units, and they usually not the part of our sprint review meetings. But for when we develop those features, we specifically invite them to attend those sprint reviews meetings so that we actually get the actual feedback. Sometimes who are giving this demo or the for the stories, it was very monotonous. We did this or very technical oriented as well. So stakeholders cannot understand, okay, you are saying that this has been achieved, but how it is working, so they cannot get the information. So we also again we have to understand that it should be user oriented, it should not be technical oriented. Sometimes we see all these kind of gap because the kind of the data we use, the kind of the tools that we use for the testing or for the demo is not the kind of the as per the user end perspective. So these are the few things that we need to fix here. Um, so that we can have the more interactive session during this sprint review. So these are the points which came into my mind. If you want to add something, Sananta, over to you.
Yeah. So I would also suggest to have, to involve your stakeholder actively, and how we can do that. So I redesigned the sprint review to include the interaction intentionally. So you can do that by asking
Mhm.
stakeholders to use the product live when we are giving it, like after that they can just use it, in front of us. Or maybe we can run some quick polls. Okay, would you going to release this today? Something like that. Maybe you can ask some specific questions. Okay, what would you stop you to suggest this to a customer, to the end user, or what is missing for this to be valuable? Things like that. So this turns stakeholders from spectators into a participants, right? And we should make that feedback visible. So how we can do that? So maybe we can ensure that during or immediately after the sprint review, maybe we have to translate feedback into product backlog items. Maybe we can trade off the discussions openly, and the PO explain what will change based on the input. So in one of our large SaaS platform which I coach, so we keep a visible stakeholder feedback, and that will translate into a backlog impact board. So like this, or maybe we can adjust the cadence or audience if needed, as you also suggest, right? Sometimes it's the issue is structural. Not every stakeholder needs to attend every sprint review, and some reviews may focus on
Yes.
experiments and other on the releases. And occasionally we can combine two teams review around a shared product goal that can also re-energize the discussion, something like that. So as the role of a scrum master, I would say, like, I do not run a better meeting. I coach the PO, I will educate the stakeholders, and we should protect the purpose of that particular event. Right? That's more important. And a sprint review should feel slightly uncomfortable in a good way, because real inspection and adaptations are happening over there. So it should not be like boring, right? So yeah, I mean, if we done it well, stakeholders stop nodding politely, and then they should start asking difficult questions. And this is how I know the sprint review is valuable again, if they're asking some difficult questions. So I think these are the few things which we could have done as a scrum master. Okay, let's move on to our next question.
Sure,
The
sir.
next question is about sprint planning. So
Mm-hmm.
let's say during a sprint planning, the developers realize they cannot forecast any new work because they must spend the entire sprint fixing technical debt, and the PO insists that the new features must be delivered. So how you are going to facilitate this kind of situation where your developers are busy with fixing the technical debt, but then PO forcing your team members to work on the new features? Yeah,
So
Garima.
here's a situation that if the team came to you and asked that, okay, we have some technical debts, and definitely, as a PO, as a person, he want to deliver, the features there. So the first and far more important point which came into my mind, why these technical debts? This is the most important thing, right? Are we missing something in our definition of done, or the way we are doing our development, or the way it was the architect or what? So, I have the different experiences here. So sometime what happened when the new features is introduced, or the some different kind of requirement came into your plate, and then you analyze, you found that the current architecture of the application is not that good supportive for that particular feature or the requirement. and you need to do a lot of change in underneath to support it, right? And then for sake for the speed or velocity or something, for the timing they had done something and they delivered it. But later they realized, no, actually we have to fix it properly. So this is the kind of the one situation that I have been experienced. But on an average, it is important to understand that why these technical debts arise and why the technical team has been in the position that they need a complete sprint to fix it. Because when we talk about the definition of done, it is important to whatever the solution that we are going to provide. It is good. It is resilient. It is should be good with the all the quality checks. So have we missed something or what is there? So this is the primary focus to analyze to understand, okay, what is it? Let's say the situation that I have shown to you that new features and the existing architecture is not matching. There is some issues. At that time, we have to be a good conversation with the PO as well. Okay, if you want to deliver some value, then we have some technical issues, or we can say the risk. So what kind of the risk that you can take care? That is very important because until we know that at some point we have to address it. Not now, might be later. So we have to then plan it accordingly. Might be it can be a mixed kind of this sprint. Okay, we should not go for each and every technical debt, but what are the critical items that have to take care? And then what we can take care in the subsequent in sprints later on the sprint. So that way we can have plan where it can be a kind of the mix sprint where we are addressing our technical debt as well, and also we are addressing our business values. If the situation is arises because earlier we are not adhere with our compliances or code patterns or coding guidelines, then definitely it is a very important thing to fix ASAP. It has to be addressed. If you need to change your definition of done or rate of done or any tool or anything, then you have to. And you have to inform every stakeholders for these kind of the decisions because this is very important because definitely it will going to impact your velocities as well, that what kind of the outcome for each and every sprint is going to impact. So you have to be very transparent into this is very important. So just to summarize it, that first to identify why these technical debts arise and then take the according actions accordingly and inform all the stakeholders. Personally, I believe that whatever the reason is behind it, but in that case, we should proceed with the mixed sprints goals where we address few of the technical types and we address few of the business goals as well, because we cannot go like that blank after a single sprint. Okay, there is no business value add on we have done because we have to take care of our customers as well. So yeah, this is from my point of view. Over to you.
Yeah, great. So from my perspective, like from my experience, when a team reaches a point where 100% of the capacity is consumed by a technical debt, it usually means that technical debt has been systematically deprioritized in the product backlog. It means that the product owner has not been given a clear economic consequences of ignoring the debt. So very first thing which we could have done is we should make technical debt explicit and visible. So first we have to ensure that the technical debt is treated as a product backlog items and not as an internal work. So we should clearly describe, we should size them, we should link to some concrete risk. So for example, defect rate or deployment failure or performance degradation. So this kind of thinking will reframe technical debt as a risk management and not engineering preferences. That's the very first thing which we could have done. Second, we should use evidence, not opinions. So I encourage developers to bring data and not emotions. So for example, some production incident trends which is happening, maybe a cycle time degradation, maybe test coverage gaps, maybe deployment failure rates. So like this, we know that, okay, with the data, we can, do wonders rather than based on the opinions. And we should enable a deliberate trade-off decision, as you also mentioned, right? So at this point, I will facilitate, not decide, because there may be options. For example, a sprint goal focus on stabilization and enablement. Maybe we deliver a small feature plus some critical depth. Maybe we running a time box refactoring effort that tie to some measurable outcomes. And we should also ask PO, right? The PO still own prioritization, but now we are also fully transparent of the consequences if we are not going to do this technical that thing, right? And we should address the systematic issues. So we'll make sure that this does not become a recurring crisis. So we should work with the PO to reserve some explicit capacity for the technical health. Maybe we should integrate some quality criteria into definition of done. Maybe we can include some technical risk reduction as a part of product goal discussions. So I do not argue that technical debt is always more important than features. I will demonstrate that hiding a technical debt is what destroys the predictability and the trust. So, as a mature Scrum Master, we should enable informed economic decisions even when they are uncomfortable. So, we should have that kind of open dialogue with our product owner. So, yeah, these are the few things which we could have done as a Scrum Master in those kind of situations. Okay. Shall we move ahead?
Excellent, Varadin. Yeah, sure.
Okay. So the next question is again little tricky one. The next question is, let's say your organization wants to scale Scrum across 8 teams, and they are building one product only, and leadership asks you to create a Scrum of Scrums with representative from each team to meet to do that daily meeting day by day. So in this kind of situation, do you think that there is some concern which you should raise, and if there any other alternative which you can suggest as a Scrum Master?
And this, okay, so we have the single product, so single product backlog, and but the team is big, so that's why we have 8 Scrum teams, right?
Yeah.
And ask is to have the Scrum of Scrums with the representatives, right?
True.
Okay, so the point is that the first we have to understand this kind of the structure. Single product, single backlog, but multiple team is the we have term for this. This is a less agile, right? And in this one, it is recommendable that we should have the cross interaction when it's required. But daily scrum of scrum, what I have been experienced, because I have been experienced that somewhere we have some basics, underneath points that we can have. So with the experience, I can say that when the representative come to the bigger kind of this scrum of scrum teams, so there might be the loss of the information because he might come or she might come with this, okay, then particular 4, 5 things and then say it, or might be miss one or two or something like that. So this is one of the, the basic gap that I have been experienced when we have been into this kind of the situation. And the second thing what I found that it is like for that particular representative, Scrum Master, PO, and any additional stakeholder who want to join this daily stand up, it is an additional effort as well. Why 2 time slots? Because definitely, if these are 8 teams, okay. If you want to say that is a time saving, then how it can be? Scrum Master has to available in all their, Scrum teams stand-ups as per the guidelines. So if one team is taking 10 minutes, so other 8, so for the Scrum Master perspective, it is the same time that he is spending or she is spending to understanding what is happening into the each Scrum teams in terms of the sprint goals, in terms of the achievements, Scrum, in terms of the impediments if they are having any. And then they are again meeting into the Scrum of Scrum, right? So this is a kind of the redundation of the information for at least 1 or 2 stakeholders, specifically for the Scrum Master. Might be the PO is not attending all, but for the Scrum Master at least. So these are the negative points that I can, that I have been experienced. And I'm sharing this with my experience only. So that's why I never recommend Scrum of Scrum, but instead of to having the good integrity into the team, that how we can have that integrations, whatever the integrations pointers, if we have any concerns or things that we could meet, we can understand each other's dependencies, or if there is any, or so these are the things that I can have, or this kind of the interactions we can have like twice in a week or maximum thrice in a week. So this will actually help the whole development team to accelerate the things and focus on their points as well. So this is what I have been shared with my experience then when I was worked into the less agile model. And when we introduced the Scrum of Scrum, but we have ultimately scrapped it. We move into the twice, we met twice in a week for all the integrations, and we try to have, I know this was a comparatively longer standards because the team members were wrong, but we try to have a faster stand-ups, but as soon as possible to together with this. So this is the way we proceed. If you want to add, so Sunan, with your experience, so yeah, please.
Uh, yeah, so just one or two small things you have already covered it up. So very first thing is I would ask leadership that do we truly have one product or multiple loosely related products? Sometimes they misunderstood it. Is there a single
Mm.
product goal? And if the answer is yes, then one product owner and one product backlog is makes sense. If we are scaling without this, then it will create chaos regardless of the coordination structure, whatever we are going to create. And as a team, our first point of discussion should be to reduce the dependencies before even adding a lot of other meetings. So my first intervention is always to map dependencies, the code dependencies, the data ownership, the deployment pipeline, the shared services, right? So this should be our starting point. And we should use event based coordination and not the daily rituals. So, in place of daily Scrum of Scrum, maybe we would suggest them to have a cross team backlog refinement for shared work, maybe to have some joint sprint planning around a single product goal. Maybe we can integrate sprint reviews with the all team present over there. Or we can have a ad hoc coordination sessions triggered by some real risk and not by the calendar, like on day-to-day basis. So coordination should be pull based, not scheduled
Mm-hmm.
by default. I think that is the difference, right? And when team needs to coordinate, the people doing the work should talk directly, like developer to developer, tester to tester, architect to architect, right? So why we have to do this, right? And if Scrum of Scrum is used, make it purposeful and temporary. So maybe, it,
Yes.
as you also mentioned, maybe once in a week or something like that. So focus strictly on cross team impediments and integration risk. And it could be facilitated by scrum masters and not the team representatives, because again, one team representative daily, as you also mentioned, multiply by 8 and into 10, then a lot of time has been gone. So we should review regularly the effectiveness of these scrum of scrum, right? So this is how I think we can frame that. I mean, scrum of scrum is not a scaling strategy. It's a coordination technique, and sometimes often a sign that the system need redesign. So our goal is to always to optimize the flow and value delivery, and not to add some extra layers of the processes on top of it. So I think that will be my response to this particular question. Yeah, but I think it's a tricky one. Most of the people will fall for it, because I mean, we have read many times that okay, Scrum is there when we have multiple teams, but this question is entirely different, totally tricky one. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I think we are halfway through our session. So, friends, take a quick pause, click that like and subscribe button. And if you're finding value in this conversation, please share it in your other Agile Scrum WhatsApp group or on LinkedIn. You never know who might be benefit from these interview questions. Okay, Garima, let's move on.
Sure.
Uh, okay, so the next question is one of the developer privately tells you that they have been hiding some incomplete work by marking the items as done, just to avoid the conflict with the product owner who pressurize them about velocity. So, what do you do as a Scrum Master?
Okay. So they are marking with done, but okay.
But they're not
Okay, this
finished.
is quite tricky one, yeah, because the point is you always have a checklist for definition of done, and you cannot,
Yeah, it's a
and we
serious
should
trust
have,
issue.
right. So it's a trust issue, it's a transparency issue and everything, because what we have seen that we usually generate few of the checklists is regarding of your code health, is regarding of your code quality. This is the one, the basics one. Then we have for the another one is for the integrity. Another might be from some reports regarding that security checks that yes, we are our code is it secure enough. Then all then we go with the yeah, testings. Then your functionals are all achieved, positive, negatives, whatever the say scenarios are, and then yes, the work is achieved, work is done. So if it is something like that, that this gives so many pointers in my mind. So number one is yes, the most important principle is impacted of agile is the transparency, the trust. And the second most important thing is that are we actually following this definition of done checklist sincerely or not? Otherwise, how it get done? The another the human aspect is that why that developer is feeling so much pressurized. What can we be? What is the reason behind it? Why he is doing it? Because one is kind of for the rules and principles, and another one is related to for the human touch as well. So as a Scrum Master, person has to be balanced between into that. And when we are discuss this point with the PO, the product owner, then we must ensure that the developer's identity has to be, safe and secure. Because it might gives, in future a kind of the personal tussle or personal impact or something like that. So it is very important to make the to that the harmony of the team must not impact it. So that is a way. So this is the human area, and the next, the earlier that I have discussed is the kind of the basic principles of the agiles and the way we need to work. We have so this has to be balanced out. Sometimes we have seen that product owner are quite persuasive, quite dominating. That this has to be done. That has to be done. Then we have to work with one-on-one with the product owner that what can be a good way to communicate your goals to the team, because every time you cannot pressurize the development team and get the work. So that is also important, but I can see there's so many pointers here. So technically as well, transparency as well, the human touch as well. So as a Scrum Master, person has to work on each and every aspect to see, okay, what are the dynamics here? And definitely there's not a single or two actions to take to take care of this kind of situation. It's quite tricky, but whatever I was mentioned that connect with one-on-one with the developer, with the product owner to touch on these things, and technical sides we have to understand that why it could got missed. You mark them, but we are not able to understand as in the reviews or the product owner, whoever, that okay, it was not done. Some pointers were missing as per the definition of that. So this also has to be, fixed. So these are the possible pointers that came into my mind quickly. So Sonan, over to you if you want to add something.
Yeah. Okay. So first, I would like to thank the developer for raising this privately. So that's already tells me that there is a psychology safety at least at an individual level. So that's good for us. And then I will make sure that two things are very clear. First, that marking incomplete work as done is not at all acceptable because, as you also mentioned, it undermines the transparency and predictability. And second, I'm not going to expose or blame them, but I will address the root cause. So this will keep the trust intact while setting a clear boundary. So that these are the two starting point for us. And what this situation reveals. So from my so many years of coaching, this pattern indicates that velocity is being used as a performance target, not a planning tool. The PO is having a delivering pressure without understanding the flow and the quality. The definition of done is either weak or been ignored completely. And of course, the team does not feel safe to say we are not done. And I've encountered similar situation in one of the project where the bonuses are tied to velocity. I mean, it's a strange thing, but multiple teams shows these kind of behavior in that particular organization. So the very first thing is we should restore the integrity of done. So we should work with the developer to reaffirm, and if necessary, we should strengthen the definition of done. Like what are the explicit quality criteria, whether the clear validation steps are in place or not, or people are just moving some partial completion to done or not. We have to ensure that make the definition of done visible and non-negotiable. And if sometimes it's not done, it's not done. I mean, there is no discussion on top of it. So if it's not done, it's not done, right? And we should also coach the PO on velocity misuse. So we should have a direct professional conversation with the PO. We should tell the PO that okay, velocity is a capacity planning tool, not a commitment or a KPI. And if artificially, if we inflate the velocity, that will destroy the forecasting and the trust. So that's something we should tell our PO for sure, right? And we should shift the conversation from output to outcome. So we should reframe our sprint success around sprint goal achievement, about increment usability, about the release readiness, right? And when the PO stop asking, like, okay, how many points did we deliver, rather than the PO should start asking, okay, can we ship this particular feature. So then the pressure on velocity drop significantly if we can able to do that kind of changes. So yeah, I mean, these are the few things which I can think of right now. Yeah, so I mean, and of course we should not report the developers as an individual issue. If someone is coming up with the like, don't kill the messenger, that's the thing. And yeah, I mean, yeah, we should not introduce more controls or approvals. These are the mistakes which could have done, like we saw some problem and then we just tried to fix it with more stringent processes on top of it. So I think we should we should not treat the symptoms but the cause. That's the idea over here. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so let's move on. I'm just looking into the time. Okay, I think we can take one more question. Okay, so
Okay.
your PU has been, let's say, ordering the product backlog based on what will make the upcoming board presentation looks good, rather than based on the value to the user, and the CO will be at the presentation. So how are you going to manage this as an Scrum Master?
Okay, so to understand the situation more clear, that okay, we have one sprint and the presentation, some senior stakeholders like CEO is going to attend, and we are trying to little bit change the kind of the demo or the review so that it looks good to the CEO. Am I right?
Yeah, true.
Right. So in that case, the what I can feel that we have discussed in the earlier questions as well, the most important aspect of the transparency, right? So somewhere it got impacted, you know. So so that is very important to understand that we have to present the thing that we have been planned and that we have done. And here we can change the narrative. What we can best do is to feel it is, yes, this is really good. So sometimes what happens when your stakeholder is mature enough who know the in and out business and everything, they are keen to understand, okay, what we have been asked, what we have been planned, and what you have to. And they're smart enough to interact, give the feedbacks and everything. And the team also quite comfortable with all these kind of things because everyone know their accountability, their responsibility, and then playing their role. But what happened when these kind of the senior or the persons has come which do not have that kind of the whole context of the things, then it is very important to narrate those context. Also let them know okay, what we have done in terms of not only in terms of the value, but in terms of kind of the things they would like to understand, like what we have learned, what is the plan, what till what journey that we have been come, and what are the kind of the future plan that we have. So for the CEO, kind of the person of the CXOs, they would like to see the things in that way. This is very general. So we have to understand the audience, and then we need to present. But we do not need to tweet the reality, what has been done. So it is important to how we are presenting. Is right. It is not that we are presenting which is something is not true. So this is one of the most important thing is there. And what is my personal experience that I have been through that whenever we have this kind of senior stakeholders or the persons regular in the sprints demos or sprint reviews who are actually not the part of as an active stakeholder who do not have the a kind of the bigger picture of the requirements and the processes that we are having. So it sometimes is kind of the overhead for the teams in this sprint review because they used to look things in an entirely different perspective, in a bigger picture, right? And when we are focused onto the business, delivering the values, our focus is 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 definitely on that the product or the application that we are going to deliver. So if it is kind of the regular things, then we have to understand that we have to protect it. Once in a while, it's okay, but not in the regular one. But if those kind of the stakeholders are your important stakeholders, they know the things, they are actually value added. So definitely we should gain the information from them. So in short, or we can say the in brief, that we have to understand the what kind of the impact of that person or the CEO or the CXO persons would be into this sprint goal. What can the value added he or she can have, and then present accordingly in the kind of the change in the words, but not into the facts. Which is it? It is we have to present that. So this is way we used to, take care of this kind of the situation.
Yeah.
I hope would you like to add your experience here?
Yeah, so I think this is a high stake integrity and a governance situation over here, and it requires both courage and political awareness. So I would not confront this emotionally, but I would not ignore it either. My role as a Scrum Master and as Agile coach is to protect the product value. Of course, at the same time, I have to also enable the leadership transparency, right? So from my experience, I think this behavior indicates that the PO is under pressure from the senior leadership for sure. And there
Mhm.
is a weak or a implicit product goal. And maybe the success is being measured by presentation impact and not the outcome. So these are the signals which I'm getting, and maybe there are some short-term optics are being rewarded over the long-term value. So that's the signal which I'm getting by looking into this question. And what I could have done, maybe I will start with a private but a respectful conversation with the PO. So I would not escalate it immediately, but first I will speak with the PO one to one. I will frame the conversation around risk, not morality. So maybe say, okay, I have concern that we are optimizing the backlog for the presentation, not for the user value. And that can look good short term, but it increase the delivery and the credibility risk immediately after that. And then probably may ask him that, okay, what messages does the leadership actually need to hear from you? Or what are the problems which you are trying to solve with this presentation? And maybe I may get some kind of reactive or some kind of reactions from the PO, but that's perfectly okay. So we should bring the discussion back to the very first principle that, okay, what is a product goal and how does each top of the backlog item support the product goal? Maybe we could have done some sort of mapping. So for example, we have our board, which is the visible items, then what is the user impact and what is the measurable outcomes. So maybe we can create some sort of, I mean, maybe a presentation, but with some measurable outcome, with some customer impact on top of it, right? So maybe we can do these kind of small things. Maybe, there will be impact on the developers as well, because if this is going to happen, then for sure in future the developers were forced to do some, some cosmetic change, or maybe they are rushed to do the lot of works, or maybe we're going to cut the quality to meet the narrative of the PO, right? So that's definitely going to happen. So we as a Scrum Master, we have to reinforce that the sprint goal and the definition of done are not negotiable, right? And we have to ensure that the Scrum events are not vehicle for executives' optics, right? So this is where a Scrum Master must be willing to be uncomfortable. And if the PO persists and if the behavior continue, if the this kind of thing will definitely going to, going to break the customer trust, there may be regulatory and operational risk. So we should escalate if the product integrity is at risk. So yeah, I mean, I don't manage the product owner behavior, but then maybe I can create that kind of transparency. Maybe we can re-anchor the decision to value. Maybe we can have the leadership to see reality clearly, especially when it's uncomfortable. So yeah, I mean, as a Scrum Master, you have to protect user value and the organizational credibility. That is the part of accountability, responsibility as an experienced Scrum Master, right? So yeah, I mean, these are the few things which we could have done. Okay, by looking into the time, it's almost an hour, so I think it's good time to stop this session over here. So thank you, friends. Thank you, Garima, for joining us for this today's session, and we hope you found it helpful and informative. And friends, if you enjoyed this session, please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. And we hope to see you in our next session. Until then, take care. This is Sunil Sharma signing off along with Garima. Thank you. Bye. Thank you, Garima, one more time.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for that. Have a nice day.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.